for a great day, but short one.
Well, Robbie Gordon's aggressiveness didn't pay off here in the early laps. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Jerry, there's always a race within a race, especially at the halfway mark in the World Series, PPG IndyCar World Series Championship. Here is what Jimmy Vasser said to his crew for Target Team Ganassi. He said, guys, hopefully we'll at least get a couple of points for the championship. Here's what Roger Penske keeps telling Al Jr. Simply where Vasser is running. Now, why? Well, how about the fact that Al Jr. is trailing Vasser in the point standings? One further update, it has stopped raining. Your leader, Christian Fittipaldi, just radioed into the Newman-Haas team that in 15 laps, he thinks the track will be dry enough to go back to the slicks. Paul?
Boy, in fact, when you take a look at the track surface, it looks like it's drying. Well, there are the points that Jack was talking about with Al Unser Jr. certainly within reach of Jimmy Vasser now, and why the focus for Team Penske is on Jimmy Vasser. There's the second half of the top 12 in the points. So the circuit is under a full course caution. It is in fact beginning to dry. When we look from our position right outside the broadcast booth here, it looks like that track could in fact dry fairly quickly. So Christian may be right. He of course has a much better view of the entire thing, and the good news is the passage of the cars over the pavement will help dry the track. See the flags flying, telling you that they are still in a full course caution as they get the tire barrier set back in place, Jerry Bunch.
Well, indeed, as they work on that tire barrier, I may mention that Paul Tracy's made quite a move early on from 11th to 3rd spot, but it cost him a part of his car. Let me show you. It cost him this carbon fiber nose piece on the front wing. Now, it's only glued in position right here, so when you do bump a car, you don't have a bumper on the front of these Indy cars. This will go away. Why won't they come in and change it on their pit stop? Well, because this carbon fiber piece is totally integral with the whole front wing. So in order to change this piece, you have to add a whole front wing. So it may not be pretty, but it runs well and has no real effect on the aerodynamics of the car here at these speeds on a road course. It will not be changed. He will race all day minus the nose piece. Paul?
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to make any aerodynamic difference at all.
No, and around this track, that's not as critical as someplace, let's say, where they were in Michigan, where it's high speed. See the track drying there? See how it's a little darker gray? Right there, that line will dry.
There are going to be some interesting decisions will have to be made very shortly here about whether or not you want to move over to your dry tires. They've been told 1 lap to go.
You saw those guys driving offline there, going down in the wet. You might say, why are they doing that? They're trying to cool their wet tires.
Jimmy Vasser comes into the pits. This is your points leader.
He's making a stop to take on fuel because he was second to last at the back of the pack. And what they're doing is it's a strategy move. He'll just go to the back. Hopefully, maybe he'll get a yellow. Something will happen. This is for later on during the race.
Jeff Krosnoff did the same thing just a few seconds ago. Let's go to Jack.
Let's give you some tactics from Newman Haas. Your leader, Christian Fittipaldi, believe it or not, guys, they're concerned about the track drying up. They feel, as we've seen, that they're far more competitive if they have to run in the wet. Meanwhile, his teammate Michael Andretti is having a slight visibility problem. The radio communication during this caution back and forth between the crew trying to tell Michael how to defog the windscreen on the front of his helmet. But what they said, if all else fails on the pit stop, they'll hand him a good old-fashioned rag and say, Michael, just wipe it clean.
Now, you saw Michael reach down. Gil de Ferran just did it as well, and wipe the back of his driving glove across the visor. Looks like his visibility there is fairly good.
It's not too bad, but when he starts running, and if he's having some fogging as well, there's moisture in there, he'll have it cracked open to try to get the air to clear it. One thing you don't want on one of these in wet conditions is a fogged up visor. It's so irritating.
Now we're going to open up the channel to Michael's radio, and we'll just keep it open and monitor that as they get ready to come back to the green flag. Assumption is he isn't going to be chattering here for a moment, but we'll keep it open just in case. The teams try not to communicate with you at this time because they don't want to interrupt any planning that you may be doing as you come toward the green. Now remember, with this new rule on the road courses, they are in race order as they come back to the green flag single file with the lap cars sitting back behind those on the lead.
Green.
As they tell Michael Andretti, green flag, let's go. running together. 4 Goodyears, followed by 4 Firestones. Tires very definitely the story here today.
Michael in that black car there seems to be trying to find a way around Paul Tracy in the bright red and white one right in your screen.
Michael Andretti pokes a nose to the right of Paul Tracy.
I think he's just trying to let him know he's there, and he's looking for a spot, but he wants to be sure when he makes that pass. There's a lot of racing left to go, and you don't want to do something and then go get your nose knocked off and have to make a long pit stop.
So humid here that even at the relatively low speeds, you're getting a contrail off the rear wing, and that tells you a little bit of something about how effective the rear wing is here and how much downforce. If you can see a contrail develop at these speeds, that's impressive. A lot of energy there on the rim on the wing. Michael Andretti working on Paul Tracy as they run along the Canadian straightaway here. That's Canada just across the river. Now that final right-hand turn brings them back toward the pit straight.
Of course, they're second, third, and fourth, and Christian Fittipaldi's pulled out a little bit just there at the bottom of your screen. He's pulled out just a little bit. He's running well. One thing interesting is the Firestones, as the track dries, some of the Firestone runners feel that their tires are better in sort of an intermediate condition. So we could see some of those Firestone runners who have been as much as 5 seconds off the pace of the Goodyears moving back up as these conditions change.
Yeah, Jack Arute was showing us earlier with the combination of the 2 tires that the tread depth on the Firestone is not nearly as deep, is it, Jack?
Well, Danny and Paul, that's precisely what Scott Pruitt is radioing into his crew. He's saying that now that the track's beginning to dry, he's getting a little bit more grip, and the newly grooved Firestone rain tires are beginning to perform a little bit better. But he's still crying and hoping that the sun comes out. He wants it to go dry. That's when he thinks he's got the ace in the hole.
And one of the things that's interesting is that grooving took place at Firestone by the advice of Kenny Szymanski, who works for the Tasman Group, who's probably one of the most experienced tire guys around and came out of Formula One. And he was helping him show which way to groove it and how to improve it.
All right, first guy out of the race is Robbie Gordon, right, Jerry Punch?
And right, Paul, we caught up with Robbie. Robbie, we were speculating that the car looked like it locked up and just started to skitter and wheel hop. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I guess I had too much front bias, and I got on the brakes. I didn't get on the brakes very hard. I locked up the front, the right front, and I tried backing off it to unlock it. And I locked up both fronts in, and I couldn't do anything with that.
How about track conditions? Looks like it's starting to dry in a hurry.
You know, it's definitely getting dry. I was asking Derek, you know, before the start of the race if it was drying up. He says it's not sprinkling anymore. It looks like it could be, because there was looking like there's a pretty dry groove out there. Not dry enough for slicks yet, but maybe about another 20 laps.
Robbie Gordon out early here today. Paul?
Watching is Al Unser Jr. working on Adrian Fernandez, and I think you may be right in that the tires may now be equalizing just a little bit in terms of performance as the track comes dry, and the Firestone's really working more the intermediate area. But behind Fernandez is both Al Unser Jr. and Ray Hall, and it's a battle for 7th place.
Of course, we're on board right there with Bobby Rahal, and he was very quick this morning. He liked his car. See him go out wide, boy, trying to get some grip and get a run off of that corner so he could maybe make an attempt to pass, but it looked like he lost some ground there.
Battling back at 12th place is Greg Moore and Alex Zanardi. Zanardi's in 12th right now, but Race Control reported just a moment ago that the 2 of them have touched, and so they're keeping an eye on both of those cars as well as we continue to watch Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal work on Fernandez. Christian Fittipaldi is the leader, followed by DeFerrin and Tracy.
And of course, at this stage, Paul, everybody's trying to feel it out, and as the conditions change, you're trying to find out what works with your car. Where can you go? Do you stay in that groove? Does it work a little bit better off? You want to stay as much as possible in that drier line because you got more grip, but they're trying to figure out what their car is going to do on those wet tires.
At what point do you begin to worry about the wear on the rain tires, Danny?
Well, you really worry when your times start dropping off. They'll peak at some time where you can run fast in drier conditions, but then when they start going away, you'll feel that the car will slide more, and you'll start losing ground to the car in front or behind you.
And once that start, how long do you have?
Well, they can run a long way. It's not a safety issue so much with the tire, especially on a course like this. It's not high speed, so it won't be a safety factor. It's just a matter of speed. If you're losing ground to somebody else, it's time to stop for slicks. If you're gaining on them, you're going to stay on those tires.
Well, this battle tightens up even more as Cal Unser Jr. goes way over to the left to try to take a run on Adrian Fernandez. And Parker Johnstone has joined this fight, as has Mark Blundell. So they are all closing down now on Fernandez. At the front of the field, it remains Christian Fittipaldi, then DeFerrin, Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, and our pole sitter, Scott Pruitt, followed by Ribeiro. We'll be right back.
You can see crewmen right now exchanging the rain tires and preparing the slicks. They feel that if they can stretch the fuel mileage, they're going to be able to put the slicks over. And Danny Sullivan, that's very important, especially when you're trying to determine how many stops you're going to have to make.
That's right, Jack, because what you don't want to do is if you stop too early, you're going to turn this into a 3-stop. And that's a lot of time in the pits. So what they want to do is stretch that thing out. And as we see right there, the track's not completely dry all the way around. We see Al Jr. and Michael getting sideways right there. It's still very wet in some spots.
That was the Paul Tracy that we know and love.
Yeah, sorry, I said Al Jr. and Paul Tracy.
He kicked the back end. Look at that, all the way back to Pruitt. That is the separation that the front four have on the rest of the field. Now here comes the rest of that fight with little Al still looking for an opportunity to get around Ribeiro. Is he going offline occasionally to keep the tires cool too?
Yes, he wants to dampen them up a little bit because if you run on that dry line all the time, the wets will go away. If you can cool them just a little bit, you can do that. Of course, he's gotten by. See, it's still wet right there. You see the dampness there? As long as those wet tires remain shiny, they're in good state. When they start going off color and get dull gray, then they're wearing them out.
Al Unser Jr. going to try to make a move alongside Ribeiro as they run on that straight over on the south side of the course. And in fact, Al Unser Jr. finally gets around Ribeiro, and he'll set his sights on Scott Pruitt just ahead. But then he's got a considerable distance to make up.
Of course, two things happened there. He passed him offline, which helped cool his tires a little bit, and plus he took the spot. Oh, there goes Mark Blundell.
Johnstone.
Good move. Tough spot to pass there, but good move.
So with that, Blundell moves into the top 10, and Greg Moore pulls up behind Johnstone. Moore, if he was involved in contact earlier with Zampedri, it doesn't seem to affect his run. But an interesting young driver here who in his Indy Lights career and his IndyCar career hasn't had a chance to drive in the rain.
No, he's got very little experience in the wet, and he's showing very well. And also interesting, I believe he's running on Firestone tires, which is nice to see a Firestone runner actually moving up there.
The view down on Belle Isle in the middle of the Detroit River. We don't like the cloud part, though.
No, that means there's still a lot of moisture out there.
The crowd here has, for the most part, stayed with us here today. They came out to see a race, and of course you can't beat race fans for hanging in there. And I think they're going to very definitely be rewarded here today as we look down from the Honda Helicam and continue to watch Greg Moore working on Parker Johnstone. Mark Blundell is just ahead. There he is. And this is back in the order down about 10th position, or exactly at 10th position. Now coming up to second place as Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti are working on Jill DeFerrin. Let's go to the pits with Jack.
Well, let's give you a little primer on why these guys on rain tires have got to find the wet. You've got approximately 5/30 seconds of tread, both on a slick and on a rain tire. But on a slick, it's spread out across the entire tire. But on a rain tire, you see, there's small little patches. So here's what happens when you've got those little patches on the ground. If it's dry, well, it literally will create a lot of heat, and that heat will be retained inside the tire. When the track is dry, however, you can distribute that heat across what's called a solid footprint. That's also why you have treads on your passenger tires. Not so that you can get better traction, only for it to work in the rain.
Yeah, you've got to have some channels for that water to squirt out of, otherwise you'll be riding on top of it. Continuing to watch